The rain had barely stopped when sheriff's deputies walked up the stone steps of the Franklin County Courthouse, carrying a stack of court orders. Television cameras quickly turned toward another group of deputies crossing the street toward the elegant brick building that housed the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association. Within seconds, bright yellow legal notices were taped across the front doors. Board members stood frozen. Reporters rushed forward. At the edge of the crowd, a tall man in a navy blazer calmly held a worn folder labeled Public Records. A reporter pushed through the cameras. "Mr. Cross," she called, "is it true that the HOA is losing control of its own assets because of information you uncovered?" Nathaniel Cross looked at the building for a long moment before answering. "I didn't uncover secrets," he said quietly. "I simply read records that anyone could have seen." The crowd fell silent. How could a retired military intelligence officer defeat an entire HOA without hacking computers, hiring private investigators, or breaking a single law? The answer began nearly 3 months earlier. If you enjoy stories where courage defeats corruption and justice always wins, subscribe and let's begin. Nathaniel Cross had spent 26 years in Army military intelligence. His career taught him one lesson above all others. People often reveal the truth themselves if you're patient enough to collect the pieces. After retiring, he and his wife, Rebecca, settled into a quiet neighborhood outside Franklin, Tennessee. Their days were simple. Nathaniel restored antique furniture in his garage, while Rebecca managed a community garden and organized charity events for local veterans. Life was peaceful until the letters started arriving. The first notice claimed their mailbox was painted the wrong shade of black. Nathaniel smiled and repainted it the same afternoon. A week later, another letter accused them of leaving trash bins visible from the street. Rebecca frowned. They've never complained before. Nathaniel folded the notice carefully and placed it inside a folder. "Every document tells part of the story," he said. The violations multiplied. Their flagpole, their flower beds, their driveway, even the height of freshly trimmed hedges. Neighbors whispered that HOA President Evelyn Brooks had begun targeting certain homeowners who questioned board decisions. Rebecca asked one evening, "Shouldn't we fight these?" Nathaniel shook his head. "Not yet." Instead of arguing, he quietly saved every letter, every envelope, every receipt, and every email. Patterns mattered. Emotion did not. Weeks later, a certified envelope arrived. Rebecca's hands trembled as she opened it. Her face turned pale. "Nate." He looked down. The document claimed they owed thousands of dollars in unpaid HOA fines. Unless payment was received immediately, foreclosure proceedings would begin. Rebecca stared at him. "We've paid everything." Nathaniel already knew. He walked to his office, unlocked a filing cabinet, and removed neatly organized payment records covering every HOA payment for the last 5 years. Every check had cleared. Every receipt matched. Every account balance was current. Instead of calling the HOA, Nathaniel quietly put on his jacket the next morning and drove to the county records office. He wasn't looking for revenge. He was looking for facts. The county records office was quiet except for the soft hum of scanners and printers. Nathaniel approached the front desk, where records supervisor Melissa Carter greeted him with a friendly smile. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I'd like to review publicly available records related to the Maple Ridge Homeowners Association," Nathaniel replied. Melissa nodded. "Everything that's public is available. Just let me know what you need." For the next several hours, Nathaniel examined property deeds, annual filings, board meeting minutes, contractor agreements, and financial disclosures. Years of military intelligence had trained him to recognize patterns most people overlooked. At first, everything appeared ordinary. Then one date caught his attention. A maintenance contract worth nearly $180,000 had been awarded to a landscaping company that had existed for only 6 weeks. He searched further. The company's registered mailing address matched the home address of an HOA board member. Nathaniel wrote one sentence in his notebook. Possible conflict of interest. He kept digging. Another contract. Another newly created company. Another connection to someone serving on the HOA board. By late afternoon, the individual pieces began fitting together like a puzzle. Back home, Rebecca noticed the growing stack of neatly labeled folders spread across the dining room table. "You found something?" Nathaniel gave a slight nod. "I found questions that deserve answers." The next morning, neighbor Linda Foster knocked on their door. "I heard about the foreclosure notice," she said quietly. "You're not the first." Nathaniel invited her inside. Linda admitted she had received unexplained fines years earlier after questioning HOA spending. Afraid of losing her home, she paid without fighting. "I kept every letter," she whispered. Nathaniel looked at her with calm determination. "Would you be willing to let my attorney review them?" After a long pause, Linda nodded. "If it helps stop this from happening to someone else, yes." Within days, Nathaniel hired attorney Olivia Bennett, one of the state's most respected property law specialists. As she reviewed the evidence, her expression became increasingly serious. "This isn't just about a wrongful foreclosure," she said. Nathaniel remained silent. Olivia continued. "If these documents are accurate, we're looking at possible financial misconduct, conflicts of interest, and abuse of fiduciary duty." She looked directly at him. "Did you gather all of this using only public records?" Nathaniel smiled faintly. "Every page." Olivia closed the final folder. "Then they have a much bigger problem than they realize." Meanwhile, HOA President Evelyn Brooks remained completely confident. At the next board meeting, she dismissed Nathaniel with a wave of her hand. "He's tried to intimidate us," she said. "Once the foreclosure is complete, he'll stop causing trouble." No one in the room realized that, while they were discussing Nathaniel, investigators were beginning to ask questions about their own financial records. The battle had only just begun. A week later, attorney Olivia Bennett filed a lawsuit seeking an immediate halt to the foreclosure and a full accounting of the HOA's finances. The filing attracted attention far beyond the neighborhood. Judge Harold Whitman reviewed the initial evidence and scheduled an emergency hearing. Inside the packed courtroom, HOA attorney Daniel Mercer stood confidently. "Your Honor," he began, "this is nothing more than a homeowner refusing to comply with association rules." Olivia rose calmly. "Then the evidence should support their position." She handed the judge a binder containing payment records, certified bank statements, board minutes, and county filings. Judge Whitman adjusted his glasses as he turned the pages. "Mr. Mercer," he asked, "can your client explain why Mr. Cross's account was marked delinquent despite multiple recorded payments?" Mercer hesitated. "We'll need additional time to verify those records." Nathaniel remained silent. He had learned long ago that facts speak louder than anger. As discovery continued, financial investigator Marcus Hill was assigned to examine the HOA's records alongside the court. His findings were troubling. Several vendor payments had been approved without competitive bids. Large sums had been transferred to companies connected to board members. Even more alarming, internal HOA emails revealed that board members had discussed Nathaniel's account weeks before issuing the foreclosure notice. One email read, "His balance is current, but proceed anyway. He'll probably settle before asking questions." Answered. Evelyn Brooks stared at the table. Daniel Mercer slowly removed his glasses. S. expression hardened. "So the board knew the debt did not exist?" No one answered. Evelyn Brooks stared at the table. Daniel Mercer slowly removed his glasses. For the first time, he realized the case was no longer about neighborhood rules. It was about deliberate misconduct. Marcus Hill then presented another discovery. The HOA had quietly transferred several association-owned parcels to businesses linked to board members for prices far below market value. Those transfers had occurred during the same period Nathaniel was being pressured with fines and foreclosure notices. Olivia looked toward the judge. "Your Honor, the wrongful foreclosure wasn't an isolated mistake. It was part of a pattern designed to silence homeowners while association assets were being improperly transferred." Judge Whitman nodded slowly. "I believe the court has heard enough to understand the seriousness of these allegations." The room was silent, but the biggest decision was still to come. Judge Harold Whitman recessed the hearing for 2 days while investigators completed their review of the HOA's financial records. When court resumed, every seat in the gallery was filled. Homeowners, local reporters, and television cameras waited as the judge entered the courtroom. "Please be seated." Financial investigator Marcus Hill walked to the witness stand carrying several binders. After reviewing bank records, public filings, meeting minutes, and property transfers, he testified, "We found clear evidence of improper financial management, undisclosed conflicts of interest, and a wrongful foreclosure initiated despite proof that Mr. Cross's account was paid in full." The courtroom fell silent. Attorney Olivia Bennett stood and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, every document presented today came from lawful public records or court-ordered discovery. My client never relied on rumors. He relied on facts." Judge Whitman looked toward Evelyn Brooks. "Do you have any evidence that contradicts these findings?" Evelyn slowly shook her head. For the first time since the lawsuit began, she had nothing to say. Judge Whitman began reading his ruling. This court finds that the foreclosure against Nathaniel Cross was wrongful, unsupported by the evidence, and carried out in bad faith. Rebecca quietly wiped away a tear. The judge continued. The foreclosure is permanently dismissed. Mr. Cross is awarded attorney's fees, court costs, and damages permitted under state law. He paused before delivering his final order. Furthermore, based on the evidence presented, the court authorizes the appointment of an independent receiver to recover and protect HOA assets connected to the improper transactions while additional civil proceedings continue. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Sheriff's deputies immediately approached the HOA board members to serve the court's orders. Outside, television crews captured the moment as deputies posted legal notices on the HOA office doors. The same building that had threatened to take Nathaniel's home was now under court supervision. Reporters rushed toward him. Mr. Cross, one asked, how does it feel to win? Nathaniel looked around at his neighbors, many of whom had quietly suffered for years. This was never about winning, he replied. It was about making sure the truth had a chance to be heard. In the weeks that followed, homeowners elected a completely new HOA board committed to transparency. Financial controls were strengthened, regular audits were introduced, and every resident received access to meeting records and budgets. One evening, neighbors gathered outside the Cross home for a small celebration. American flags waved gently in the summer breeze as children laughed in the street. Linda Foster walked over with a smile. You gave this neighborhood something we thought we'd lost. Nathaniel smiled. What was that? Hope. He glanced at the thick folder that had started everything. Its cover still read Public Records. He closed it gently and looked down the quiet street. In intelligence, he said softly, we learned that the smallest detail can expose the biggest deception. Rebecca slipped her hand into his. Together, they watched the sunset over a neighborhood that finally felt like home again. Because in the end, corruption may hide behind power, but truth is always waiting in plain sight for someone willing to look.